So today is Tuesday, May 16th. The time is now 3:41. We're in conference room B and E here for the Housing Policy Committee meeting.
First ever.
First ever inaugural. So here with, I am Councilor J.T. Moore, the chair of this committee. We have Councilor Darrell O'Quinn, as well as Councilor Carol Clark. And so I now call this meeting to order. We don't have any minutes to approve or to review, but I'm going to go ahead and open us up in an invocation. So if everyone will please bow your head. Father God, we just come before you today just thanking you for this great opportunity, this great meeting of the minds, God. We thank you for wisdom and guidance. You said in your word that you would lead us and guide us into all truth. And so we believe that we have that right now. We just thank you, God, that we can make a difference in the area of housing policy and fairness in this city and provide opportunities for those who need it most, whether that's information or resources or whatever the case may be. We thank you that you are in the midst and that you help us to make the city better. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Like I said, we currently do not have any minutes to approve because this is our very first meeting, but we do have the pleasure of having Dr. Megan Venable Thomas here to give us a presentation from the Community Development Department. And so I'm going to transition this over to you. Again, I understand that this is our first meeting, so it was a little, I guess trying to figure out exactly what we were going to discuss on this first one was, a little tough, but we'll just kind of work it out as we continue to move forward. And so really excited to hear whatever you have to present to us today. So
thank you, Counselor. It's very exciting to be here with you all today for this inaugural committee meeting, and I look forward to continuing to collaborate with all of you as the housing lead for the city. We have a lot of exciting work ahead of us, but also a lot of exciting things that are in the works. So this really is a presentation to revisit some of the things that we have in the pipeline coming up that have come before you, and to really get us excited about some things that are going to come before us soon. So I just wanted to start off talking a little bit about the Department of Community Development, so we understand a little bit about what we do. Sometimes those words together don't say a lot about what all we do in our department. Housing is a big part of that, but also public services. And so our mission statement is really about envisioning a Birmingham where all communities thrive. We understand that our zip code impacts our health more than our genetic code, and so as folks driven by our passion for people and our instinct for creativity, we really are trying to focus all of our strategies and outcomes on meeting people where they are and providing options for wherever people are on their housing journey for healthy, dignified, and sustainable housing. And I think what's important here in this mission is about the provision of options, because as you'll see through a lot of the things that have already come before council, but also as we're ideating around what we want to see come and what we hope this group too can be thinking and envisioning are how do we find options across the spectrum of housing and housing needs and community-based needs to meet people where they are, which might be different from where you are and might be different from where you imagine what your most attainable option of housing is. And so we'll see a little bit of that from what we're doing already, and I want us to just keep that in mind as we're moving forward and as you all are working in this committee. And so I just, on this next slide, just want to revisit some of the Vision 2025 goals from the mayor, which really guide our strategy and our approach to how we're doing this work and what we're thinking about doing. And what I think is important to note here in gray and in blue are all the ones that really are impacted by community development, right? Honoring and elevating Birmingham's history is really critically important. I'll talk a little bit about choice neighborhoods in a minute. Making Birmingham a destination city is really about the revitalization that's happening in our community. Ensuring Birmingham's long-term affordability is obviously critically important and work that comes out of our department. Investing in all of Birmingham's neighborhoods, reimagining North Birmingham, restoring historic Inslee, and then reimagining Smithfield and Ealerton. And I highlighted those two in blue to really draw out a couple of more specific goals. One, the building of 2,500 units of affordable housing, and then creating choice neighborhoods with amenities and quality of life. And under those are a lot of other things. And I think it's exciting to note that in this first year of my role in the department, directing the Department of Community Development, a lot of these we are achieving, are working on, or are on the way. And so I just wanted to kind of start off by grounding us in this, because that 2,500 unit goal is important, but also a lot of these other approaches that help us get there, I think, are critical as I'm thinking about the work that I'm doing, but also how I want to think about our collaboration too with this committee. So the next slide, just to say a little bit more about our department. You can see our team here, some of our team. We have 42 full-time employees. And if you go to the next slide, to dig in a little bit more into what we've been working on, we have a number of divisions that help us get to our goals. There's a housing rehab and housing specialist development department. There's grant operations with auditors and compliance. There's accounting. There's a land bank, which is really critical to how we do this work and leverage the tools that our city has to be able to provide as development assets. And then our neighborhood services and outreach specialists with our community resource services are all really important components of how we do this work. And here are a few stats from our most recent kind of the past 2 years with our HUD federal monies. We've been able to provide shelter, homeless services, over 20,000 public service activities and events. We've created jobs and provided small business loans, many of which you have all seen come before you at City Council. We also have a number of other services that we provide: household assistance with tenant-based rental assistance. We provide affordable units, which we'll be providing many more. Repair services to homeowners, which will be also doubling, tripling in the next year, as well as permanent supportive housing and other community services activities. And so we're going to be focusing on housing, but I think it's important to note that houses themselves, right, the infrastructure itself does not a thriving community make. We also need all of these other wraparound services. So I want us to all be thinking about those as well as we're thinking about the development and the policy. And so if we go to the last kind of slide, we can see some of the tracking of what that looks like for us and what it has looked like over the past year. So you see, starting from the top, we have our Oak Hill development, which we did a groundbreaking in March. Our way station, which we supported, which is providing transitional housing for youth that are homeless. Shadowbrook development, which is providing 52 units of housing for affordable home ownership. Our Southtown development, which we are supporting with partnership with HABD. Oklahoma development with Habitat for Humanity. We did have a groundbreaking scheduled in April that got rained out, so we will be rescheduling that soon. Woodlawn, we are developing housing there, 16 units. We recently you recently approved the Own It in Eastlake housing units. Smithfield, we're also doing our Choice Neighborhoods Initiative grant, which last week we did our site visit. So I'd like to say thank you to Councilor Quinn for the monies that you've given to support that development and the work that we're doing there. I think it's important to note here the $34 million commitment that we've made to that project, which is really a $243 million project. And we're bringing more than most cities have brought in this choice neighborhood application. But what I also think is important to note here is the amount of estimated units that this provides, which is really critical towards getting towards our goal of 2,500 units. We should find out. That visit was amazing. I think we did a really great job, and we're able to demonstrate not only the reasons why Smithfield is a very important investment for this grant, but also how equipped we are and ready as a city to NHABD and partners to take on a grant like this and to make it impactful and effective in our community. We have our micro shelter project, which I will talk a little bit more about, but to just place a note here, we've been working over the past couple of months. We have a committee that meets weekly to discuss this project and the program and how we're moving forward. Because we originally did a presentation to the committee of the whole, we are preparing a presentation to go back towards the committee of the whole to present our updates there, which will be coming in the next couple of weeks. Inslee, we're working on a project there which has already been approved, but has been pushed to winter 2023, which will be a significant project with Zimmerman. And then I want to talk about our home repairs, which we've completed 80 home repairs over the past year, which was a $1.5 million investment. And as you all know, we're preparing to bring forward an administrator for this program to launch it in July for our 250 estimated critical repairs with the $4 million of CDBG that we have to do that. So these are some of, and overall, this is kind of a $53.6 million investment that we've invested into affordable housing development. And with the creation of over 1,700 units, which gets us to our goal, which is exciting, gets us toward our goal, but not to our goal. But we have a lot of other exciting projects and opportunities in the pipeline, which you will be seeing soon. But just really wanted to remind us of what we've already done and committed to. And I think it's important, too, just to note that $53 million investment is huge, and it's amazing, and it is a part of what gets us to a development. So on average, what we are contributing for large development projects as a city is about 20 to 30% of a subsidy to help a project get done. The developers, philanthropic organizations, other sorts of investors, tax abatements, all of those other things really are what get the project done to the full capacity of what the cost is. But I think it is critical, our monies are critical to seeding the type of investment that attracts other investors to projects. And so what we do and what you approve is really important to all of these investments or these developments, and it's only the very beginning often or the last dollar that really gets the development across the finish line, and they're required to bring a lot more to the table. I think also what you'll see here is there's a real mix in like larger development, mid-sized development, and smaller developments, and that's very much intentional because we are working to not only support large developments and demonstrate that we have the capacity in our city to do large developments, but also to support small, Black-owned, minority-owned, women-owned developers and organizations to be able to do that work as well. And so we have some exciting programs to think about capacity building that will be on the horizon as well that you will see pretty soon. So I will stop there because I'm sure that you have questions, but I really wanted to focus on what we've already committed ourselves to then be able to, in the future, talk more about what we want to see, how you want to see it, what we are proposing and ideating and creating, and how we can collaborate together on doing so.
Dr. Thomas, thank you so much for this presentation. It definitely, is good to be able to see everything all at once in front of us, and got a lot of great projects that have already taken place and that are coming down the pipeline. So I'll just kind of open it up for questions to my colleagues. See you right, Councilor Clark.
You see me right? I'm always right.
So,
Yeah.
so
Well, I know, you've really, hit the ground running. You really haven't been here that long. How long has it been?
It's been a year and a month.
A year and a month. So I know you bring a real national perspective to the issues we face in Birmingham. And I'm just curious, what do you see as just some of our big gaps and just, what's missing? I mean, I have my sense of what's missing, and for me, it's you know, it's legislative tools like a funded housing trust fund,
Mhm.
and maybe we've got this workforce tax credit legislation pending, but something that makes the incentives at the Alabama Housing Finance Authority work, because they don't, like the 4% bond program doesn't work, right? It just leaves a big gap
Yeah.
that the city can't fill. So the lack of subsidy for affordable housing, but I mean, you bring such an incredible perspective from where you came from. And CDCs, we killed off the CDCs in the 80s,
Yeah.
you know, that proliferated in the 80s. So, I mean, those are like two things that bear, and you mentioned capacity building, so that's something you obviously see.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
gap. And I'll stop answering our questions.
I was like, well,
And
you
just-
are off to a great start around some of the things that we're absolutely seeing. I think the policy component is huge, and I feel like that's a great opportunity for this committee to be partnering to talk and think through what are those state and local and national policy advocacy points that we could really be going after. I think there's a lot we can do locally, and to your point, there's a lot that we need at the state level to really work at our highest functionality in this space. And that is around credits, abatements, the ways we can bring other types of incentives to developers. And I think to your point around local-led capacity, I think that's really critical. We probably have 3 to 4 CDCs and CHODOs in the city, and that's just not enough for the type of development that we want to see. And I think what's interesting about CDCs in particular, or CHODOs, is community development housing organizations or community development corporations, is that they really bring that local-led, that hyper-local representation that we all really care about, because ultimately we want to maintain the fabric of our communities and the culture of who we are as Birmingham while bringing this revitalization at the same time. And so I think we've been talking a lot about capacity building and actually working with a national partner to help us think about that, which we'll be talking about more soon. But I think that's a big gap, is not only the local-led developers, but also the local financiers. So CDFIs as well, I think, are really important, and even this intermediary level of capital that can really help to not only support investment, but deployment across the city and the region. And so the question of how we do that, I think, and do it well or in a way that's in our context, is one that I think is interesting to think about and an exciting opportunity, because I think we do have a lot of folks who are interested in the space and need the support to move into the space and to do it well. And I think the other piece is then, it's kind of a chicken or an egg situation around what comes first: the ability to demonstrate that you have amazing projects that are happening so you can attract investment, or investing in you so that you can build the capacity to do the projects. And I think it's a little bit of both. And that's why it's important that we're able to demonstrate projects like Choice Neighborhoods initiatives that shows we can bring a lot of partners to the table that can do this work. We can attract local, state, and national investment that then gets investors more excited in wanting to invest in us, because they know not only whatever they give is going to go towards something that they care about, but also whatever they give is actually going to result in the thing that they want to see, and that we can do it with longevity. And so I think we're demonstrating with a lot of these projects that we're seeing, Southtown or partnerships with HABD or these larger developments, that we can do this work, we can do it well, and we're ready for the investment, and that's really kind of what else we need to cross that bridge, in spite of the policies not quite being as easy as they are in some other states, we still have the opportunities to make things happen.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was really nice. I'm so excited that I got to see that session with HUD on the HUD site visit, because I think it proved a lot to us about ourselves. And, you know, I feel like we're going to get the grant, but then the demonstration is not just, you know, we got a cluster for impact, and that sort of focus and if we're able to implement everything in the plan, it's going to change that market forever.
Right.
And we shouldn't have to continue to invest there. And it's enough, it'll be catalytic enough to really change that area. And so I think even if it's not in your area, we all need to be interested, because it can model for us
Absolutely.
how the clustering of resources can really, you know, tip things, so we don't have to keep chipping away at it.
Right.
You know, just go big
Right.
in a focused way.
And then you could be next.
And then, if it works, you can model it somewhere else.
That's right.
But yeah, there's so much distress that we can't, if we scatter our resources, it'll just look like we never did anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's the best way to think about it. And I think the choice is kind of a really great example of that and what can happen when you do that and how it can spur investment outward. And that's what we're going to see when we get that Choice Neighborhoods Initiative grant. Is we're going to see that investment spread out. We're going to see the other national, state partners, even just us getting the site visit, right? Made people who didn't commit when we did the application interested in saying, oh, well, do you guys need this? You know, and so I think, again, to that chicken and egg piece, being able to have a demonstrated project, and sometimes it's just something for people to chew on, right? Something for people to see and say, oh yeah, I do like that. Or how about if we did it like this? It can start the conversation in a way that maybe couldn't have been started before having that. And so I think it's a really exciting opportunity for the whole city and all of the neighborhoods and communities that we're interested in developing, just being able to come together and do that work. And it's not easy to do all of that partnership and collaboration, but I think we also are setting a precedent, particularly as someone new who's still building relationships, through this partnership, being able to build the relationships that really help us to move around the city and do things and duplicate things or revive things in a way that maybe we wouldn't have been able to do before.
I was really ecstatic to see all those people around. But yeah, I'm done.
Cool. Councilor O'Quinn?
Yeah, on the choice application, I think it's, you know, spectacular when you really look at it, the amount of partner commitments that we've been able to get, like, not you. So, yeah, I mean, you know, when we go after these projects, you know, like a 50-50 match with the feds is sort of, you know, extraordinary. In this case, if you look at the total investment, the feds are a minor partner, you know, virtually. So, you know, that kind of, I don't know, that should wow a lot of people. It's very impressive. So, in the context of this committee, you know, I think we're all thinking about, well, amongst our colleagues, there was definitely a desire to have this sort of focus group to think about housing issues. And, you know, since we are now the counselors assigned, you know, to this committee, we're thinking about, okay, you know, what specifically do we want our work to be about? And definitely preserving housing affordability is like at the top of the list for us, I think. And so recently, something came to my attention in terms of preserving affordability. There's housing tax credit project that is in my district. And recently that tax credit program came to an end. And it's, the property is now being, going to private for-profit entity. And there are, a number of low-income folks who are benefiting from that program. And this is, an area of town where we've seen, quite a bit of displacement over the past several years. So, it is what it is. It's a program. It's doing exactly what the program was designed to do. But I'm thinking about other housing units that we have within the city that are set up the same way. And to be honest with you, this one kind of caught me off guard. It wasn't, really on my radar. But now that it is, I'm thinking about, okay, what else is out there?
Well, let me say this, because I know the one you're talking about. So the low-income housing tax credits that they use the 9%, and it was a year I was in the mayor's office, and the 9% awards were all dedicated for disabilities, okay? So whether it was physical disabilities, substance abuse, that was the theme of that year. And Alethea House got the award, and the city did a land grant. And so we put a deed restriction on there to preserve affordability. But the low-income housing tax credit itself would not have preserved affordability in perpetuity. When those credits burn off, they're at liberty to sell and let the market take over. But the fact that we did a deed restriction, had we not, voted to dissolve that, it would have preserved the affordability. They would have been required to keep it affordable for, I guess, in perpetuity until we released them from that restriction. So I didn't realize we had that other layer. That was just a detail I didn't remember, even though I did the land grant. I facilitated it as the person in the mayor's office who was administering housing bond funds at the time.
Yeah.
So the law department put that on there. And I guess, that's a way, or at least for us to consider and see a lot of things when we vote, like say for instance, when we vote on a land sale, we're declaring it surplus and not needed for a municipal purpose. So we're making that determination with no information really as to whether people really need it or not. But I think when we voted to remove the restrictions, but then it's, but for me it was revelatory that we placed one on there, and I went, aha, that's how you put an extra layer that would make it affordable beyond the tax credit period. Things could have gone differently for Avondale. It could be like it was 25 years ago.
Right.
And then it would probably need to stay affordable because the market pressures wouldn't be so great but we probably would have the option to do something different, like say 50% needs, modify the deed restriction so that a percentage now stays affordable. With the market now being strong enough to support market rate, we just might want to preserve some affordability instead of all of it being affordable.
Right.
And I think that's important to think about what does a thriving community look like as far as the mix, right, of incomes that we want to see, whether it's within a building or within a community, and to be able to have that kind of oversight of understanding what the neighborhood looks like or the community looks like and how that mixes in. That's the other great cool thing about choice neighborhoods is you get so much of the neighborhood that you're thinking about that you can really be strategic about that. I will add that with all of our funding, federal funding, we have requirements for affordability that is tied to the funding. And I think that's an opportunity to think through, as we're providing funding for other developments that are happening, whether it is for demolition or some other sort of funding source, to be thinking about what then is the requirement we're asking for tied to this financing. We think about it because it's just required with our funding. But I
Is
think
it up to 60 or 80?
80%. Most is up to 80% AMI. Some of ours go up to 120, very few. But yes, most are 80% or below.
And are there, so with the, the Avondale property, what was that, 15, 20 years that those tax credits?
It was, I believe that local, it was 20 years.
Yeah,
It used to
20
be
years.
15, but it's, I think
And
it's
they
now
change
20
it
years.
every now and then to what that restriction is, which sometimes can change based on the project as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's sort of my concern is that, you gotta assume that for some of these folks, especially folks who are elderly or disabled, their financial circumstances aren't likely to change. So that 20-year time period is, equates to, you're good for 20 years, but in 20 years, you're gonna have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and the populations may have turned over in that term, I don't really know if they had to continue to meet the disability requirement or just the income requirement. I don't happen to know. But I know we did ask in the administration committee if those tenants would be allowed to serve out their lease terms. And we were told yes, but then on the other hand, how do you know? I mean, once it's turned over, maybe that could be a place where we could interact more with a fair housing, like with some sort of notice to say, hey, we're releasing these deed restrictions, these tenants are entitled, but we don't have any enforcement or oversight or way to make sure that the new owner doesn't kick them out. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes those restrictions go away when it's sold as your.
I had an opportunity to engage with the party that's interested in purchasing the property, and it was indicated to me that the current tenants would have a 3-year period to make a transition, and in the meantime that they would be incentivized to make a transition.
Yeah, and we don't have many good places for people to live. That's another.
Right.
And
Why we
it's a
can make
challenge
some
from the
exceptions.
investment side too. These windows or ends to these cycles of affordability are also how they build their capital stack, or understand
Right.
what
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
their investment is going to look like. And so I think again there's the kind of weighing of who the developers are and what type of product they bring to our communities that is worth understanding the lifetime of what that development is going to be and actually have to offer to our community.
Yeah, it's hard stuff. It's like, in order to get a project done, you have to add in, this limited term portion of the financing, but if you didn't do that, the project wouldn't be done. There would be no housing units, so I guess, what I'm wishing for is that as we, envision these projects in the future, I'm sure this is the case, but, I would hope that we would kind of set up the projects from the beginning so that they're financially sound in perpetuity, not for a limited amount of time. So
But you know, the market changed, it could support, it, I'm not sure Avondale would have attracted a lot of market rate renters, you know, 20 years ago.
Right, absolutely.
But
yeah.
now that it will, how do we preserve some equity in that deal? We
Right.
may, you know, we don't want to, you know, create, for lack of a better term, is a good term, ghettos. So how do we preserve a share of the units to be affordable long-term?
Yes, and I think
Even
that's
though
where our
the market
assets.
conditions are now very favorable
Mhm.
for market rate, how do we allow some people to, who are lower income, to keep living there so that we have diverse and vibrant and, you know, situations everywhere?
Yeah, I think that's where our assets come into play. We have a lot of land assets in our city, across neighborhoods, and that's a critical component of how we make developments, affordable developments work. And I think that's an opportunity between the land bank and the other city-owned properties and HABD-owned properties and partner-owned properties that we can really leverage as tools for maintaining affordability, especially our larger swaths. So just really thinking about, you know, our schools and these other properties that are vast, that we have opportunities for development, how we're able to be thoughtful about how that tool is a part of what maintains the affordability.
So how do your deals work? Do they time out when the mortgage is done in terms of the affordability period? Or is it, as long as you have money in it, it's affordable? If you have $1 of your money in it,
so
it stays affordable?
some deals are different than others, because a lot of our CDBG funding goes towards infrastructure. So we really get into the dirt of the development, which then allows us to be stuck with you, which is important. But some deals do have a life cycle, but many of our deals have long, lifelong, or go with the whole deal. We can talk through what each one does too, because we have different sources of funding, but I'm happy to do some presentations around how different sources of funding work. I mean, not right now.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, I think that this is, you know, like definitely a good initial start, just to be able to be informed about a lot of the different opportunities that we have in this city to create the affordable housing that we need. I didn't know if you had another question, Councilor Quinn.
I don't know. I would be, you know, since we're on public record now, you know, I think might be of some value to the public for us to just sort of, since this is the inaugural meeting, you know, just to sort of share what we're trying to accomplish through this committee. So, you know, if you're open to doing a little bit of that, I think, you know, we just touched on it a second ago and talking about preserving affordability as being, you know, one of our things that we envision as part of the objectives of this committee. That in itself could go a lot of different directions. So, you know.
So that's kind of your key goal. And I think I have one, but do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, to his point, preserving affordability, but then also finding ways for us to, I think we discussed about seeing what products that, you know, our banks or how they're supporting, you know, our communities in these low to moderate income areas. And if they're really, you know, doing their part to invest in these communities. And so really trying to make sure that, you know, we're advocating in that way to be able to get that type of movement.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to be on the Housing Policy Committee a bunch of years ago. And I had this little thing in this list of my responsibilities called housing policy. And it was like, okay, what's that? What am I supposed to do with that? But it was a team that, it was a committee that included a representative for the mayor, which I was, a representative from the city council, which at the time Alice Williams was as the committee assistant for Smitherman. It had someone from finance, someone from legal, and we would just go up there and sit on the 10th floor and listen to, I guess, I can't remember if it was in advance of the consolidated planning cycle. Before then, you all had those public hearings about how you were gonna spend your money, but it was just really to review your programs and policies or things that might be coming to the, advance to the council. But it wasn't a council committee in those days, and I'm not suggesting that it be different, but I'm just sharing that for historical perspective of how that housing policy committee functioned. It was kind of just building consensus around and sharing ideas and getting some feedback from a group, kind of a cross-functional team. And you all may still have that, but just on your side. But my interest, I think, is being advocates for you all and helping you workshop things you got to bring before the council, of course. But also, I hope together we might, get some additional tools, beef up the toolkit for the production of affordable housing. And again, that's of course more sources of subsidy, because it won't just be affordable unless somebody pays for it. And somebody got to pay to make it affordable. But and the public purpose is in affordable. The market can take care of itself. But it didn't always take care of itself. So, but and then I think the capacity for building that hyperlocal capacity, even if we can't have organizations. We just got someone asking us for ARPA funds to create a nonprofit accelerator, and we were like, "Oh, that sounds intriguing, right?" Because we just need nonprofits that know how to do what they're supposed to do, and they're well trained and capable. But it wasn't themed around affordable housing or CDCs. It might be baseball lands, something that reared itself as needing some capacity building, right? It could be, but we don't know how they would decide what their areas of focus are. But I think y'all have the pitch too. But anyway, real excited about the possibility of just having more community-based organizations that are well trained and have the ability to get resources to help us do some of this work, because the city can't do it all. But in particular, I like the idea of having, we were talking about cloning the Shondas in one of those meetings. but the way that Woodlawn has demonstrated, a place-based, holistic community revitalization effort, looking at how we can, whether they become many, clones of Woodlawn or something different that's true to the culture of that local area. I'd like to see more of those. And I know they won't happen without a lot of resources. But I guess if I had to sum it up, advocating for more tools and resources, whether it's general fund, to go, because I was excited about your $10 million, but I was like,
Right.
that is not nearly enough. Can we do $10 million a year?
Can't
Or-
we?
Exclamation point on the record. But I mean, because we have not properly leveraged those HUD resources we've gotten all these years. And we just said, okay, they gave us this, let's go spend it. But we haven't put general fund resources with that historically. And so creating that housing trust at a time when we had some, extra cash, but we gotta keep those investments going. Because we have a lot to do.
Listen, I think this is a good.
I just got to add this one other. So we got preserving affordability, holding our financial institutions accountable to complying with the CRA requirements, beefing up the toolbox, and the fourth one I would add is just getting people sheltered. Period. People who are experiencing homelessness. So I know that you're gonna present to committee of the whole about that on that topic, but I think that's our top four.
I feel like I want to add one more.
Okay.
Because I know we all possibly, get calls about landlords that, are less than desirable to live in their establishments. And so seeing if there's some type of way for us to serve as I don't know exactly what I want out of that, but some type of oversight in the area of slumlords, if you will.
So I'm just wondering if that is our place, kind of. I'm wondering a little bit.
Would that be outside of our purview?
I do think, okay, for instance, in my district, in one neighborhood in particular, the proliferation of Section 8 rentals is sort of destabilizing the neighborhood. And a lot of them are not Birmingham Housing Authority. They're other housing authorities, Jefferson County, or whatever, Fairfield. But so if I call Birmingham, they're like, that's one of our, But I do think if there was I've always thought, is there a way to do some kind of outreach to landlords in a positive way?
Yeah.
To let them know what's going on, because that's a really strong neighborhood, and they're invested in it. So I don't know if there's some kind of positive way we could engage landlords through some sort of newsletter, some kind of, and I don't know what the way would be, but something not harsh, but just to get them engaged in Birmingham, because a lot of times the landlords don't live here; they live in California. I mean, so how do we connect with them so that they're engaged and starting to care about what's going on in our community? Man, because that's my thought. I mean, there's a lot of them are absentee and they're just invested. But there is a group here. I don't know if they say, do we have time? There's a group of apartment association.
I didn't know if we had any speakers.
I don't know that they asked to speak.
No, we didn't ask you.
Okay.
We're here just with the Greater Birmingham Apartment Association, and we just wanted to be a part of, this conversation, and we would love to, be a resource for you guys as well when, as you're going through what the priorities are, so that we can kind of help with that in any way that we can.
Thank you. Okay. No, look, I think, no, so.
I mean, I don't know. We just got to maybe talk to the law department.
He got a question.
Oh, okay. We had a gentleman that had a question. Yes, sir.
Yes.
State your name.
My name is Lady of Banks. I'm from Citizenville community.
Got you.
And I have been a long time observer and part-time involved with community organizing. I come from a family that's been in Birmingham for 150 years now. But I wanted to possibly ask a priority. Amnesty, property tax amnesty. In Birmingham, because you have at least 10,000 tax delinquent properties that the land bank has privy to. And even yesterday, there will be more coming in terms of the auction that took place with the county. We have about 6,000 tax delinquent properties that were up for auction as of yesterday. And a significant portion of that is in Birmingham. So tax delinquency is continually evading the scope of our ability, the city's ability, in order to get hold of. The tax amnesty or property tax assistance program that would rank up to even the indebtedness that it has, then you would be able to take these properties, we have tens of thousands of them, and make them more productive. And land bank has limited monies and limited abilities in order to deal with tax delinquencies. But if you can actually get a hold of all the tax delinquencies and then make those whole again, so that monies can back to the church as a revenue source. So if that could be added to your list of priorities, I think it would be completely beneficial.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the input. Thank you. Well, listen, I think, you know, we definitely have gotten off to a good start. I appreciate, you know, everybody just, you know, kind of being patient as we talk through these different things and, you know, kind of discuss some of the complexities. Yeah, you know. I think that, you know, regardless of what direction we go in with this list of priorities, I think that, you know, we can definitely walk our way into, you know, success. And so I'm just excited to be at the table with all of you and looking forward to the future conversations that we have around this topic.
I'm sorry, you're about to adjourn, but I'm gonna add blight prevention.
Right. Okay.
And I'll explain that later.
Cool. Well, is there a motion for an adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.